stop for a moment. Whatever you're doing can wait, because what I'm about to lay out is not just social media chatter, and it's not a simple party drama headline. Reports suggest something major is happening inside Republican leadership right now, mostly away from cameras, mostly behind closed doors, and it could reshape what the party looks like in the days ahead. Sources indicate that early this morning, several top Senate Republicans went into a private meeting with Senate leadership. On paper, it looked normal. No public notice, no press gaggle, no signs that anything unusual was coming. But what happened next, according to multiple people familiar with the conversations, set off a wave of panic, anger, and planning across Washington. And the reason this matters is simple. Analysts believe the next 48 to 72 hours could determine whether Senate Republicans stay aligned with Donald Trump or whether a serious break becomes public and permanent. So if you want to understand where this goes next, stay with me. And if you follow political power moves, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on, because what happens next may move fast. Now, here's what's being discussed in political circles and what sources say has pushed this situation into a new phase. According to people familiar with internal conversations, late Wednesday night into early Thursday, Trump reportedly reached out to top Senate leadership with a hard demand: move quickly on a measure described by some insiders as an emergency powers expansion proposal. The message, as it is being described by sources, was not subtle. The demand was framed as urgent, and there was reportedly pressure attached to it, warnings about political consequences for senators who did not fall in line. Then, early the same morning, another piece of fuel hit the fire. Reports suggest that audio described as private began circulating among Republican circles, audio in which Trump is alleged to have spoken in a way that sounded dismissive of the Senate's independence. Now, to be clear, we cannot independently verify every detail of what was said or how that recording spread, but multiple sources indicate the reaction inside Senate Republican leadership was not fear. It was anger. And that reaction is what reportedly triggered an emergency internal conversation at the top, one that people familiar with it describe as tense, serious, and unusually direct. Why is this moment different? Because to understand what could be happening now, you have to understand how Trump has held power over Republican elected officials for years. It wasn't only about ideology. It wasn't only about bills and votes. A lot of it, according to political analysts, has been about leverage, public pressure, endorsements, and the fear of being targeted from within the party. Republicans have watched what happens when someone breaks from Trump. They've seen the backlash, they've seen the headlines, they've seen the primary threats. And over, many chose the safer path: stay quiet, stay supportive, and avoid becoming the next target. But here's the key point. Fear works only as long as people believe compliance will protect them. And sources suggest that calculation may be changing because several forces are colliding at the same time. First, there's the election reality. Analysts point out that the Senate map is tough for Republicans. Many seats are in play, and in several competitive states, polling has reportedly shown that being too closely tied to Trump can become a problem with swing voters. One Republican, according to a person familiar with internal talk, summed it up like this: they can sell conservative policies, but they cannot keep defending constant turmoil without paying a price. Second, there's foreign policy concern. In recent days, Trump has made public comments about Greenland and U.S. power that some allies and defense-focused lawmakers have viewed as alarming. And again, it's important to be careful here. People can disagree on rhetoric and strategy, but reports suggest that some lawmakers and national security voices believe these statements create risk, not strength, especially when allied relationships are involved. Third, there's legal pressure. Trump faces multiple legal cases, and timelines appear to be moving. Some emergency efforts have reportedly failed, and dates may be tightening. Sources close to Republican legal circles suggest party leaders are quietly considering a reality that many voters don't think about day to day. What happens if the party is tied to a nominee facing serious legal restrictions during the campaign season? Put all of that together, election risk, foreign policy friction, legal uncertainty, and suddenly defending Trump isn't just uncomfortable. According to analysts, it can start to look like a political trap. So what did Senate leadership do? People briefed on internal discussions describe a closed-door meeting where the tone shifted from frustration to decision-making. One person familiar with the gathering claims, leadership played the reported audio for everyone in the room, not once, but more than once, and then let the silence sit. The point, according to that source, was not to embarrass anyone. It was to force the question, is this what the party is going to accept as normal? After that, the conversation reportedly turned sharp. One senior Republican in the room allegedly argued the party could not keep defending behavior that looks chaotic to voters who are already tired, stressed, and looking for stability. Another reportedly warned that open resistance would bring political retaliation and reminded everyone of past examples where Republicans paid a price for stepping out of line. Then, according to multiple accounts, the key argument was delivered. The message was basically this: retaliation might happen no matter what. So the real choice isn't whether you get attacked, it's what you're defending when it happens. Sources indicate leadership framed it as a choice between protecting Trump personally or protecting the Senate as an institution. And then came what may be the most important part, the plan. According to people familiar with the strategy, leadership began discussing a structured response, not just a press statement. Step one, as described by sources, a formal message making clear the Senate would not rush a vote on an emergency powers expansion effort. Step two, Senate leadership limiting public campaign alignment unless rhetoric and messaging returned to what they considered a more stable, less risky line, especially on foreign policy. Step three, if Trump-backed challengers are launched against sitting Republican senators, leadership would respond by supporting incumbents strongly, financially and politically through party structures. Now, none of this is confirmed in an official document by the people involved, and not every senator has spoken publicly. But multiple sources suggest the internal commitment was real and that it was treated as urgent. And according to those accounts, the most dramatic moment came when the final vote in the room was needed. One person described a long pause because agreeing to a plan like this could change careers. But in the end, sources suggest the group reached alignment. And once that happened, everything reportedly moved fast. Calls went out to senior senators. Support was tested, names were counted, some early supporters were expected, but sources claim a few names were surprising, figures who have often defended Trump publicly. If those accounts are accurate, it would suggest something important. This is not just a fringe rebellion. It could be a broader concern inside the party about what happens next if Trump keeps escalating demands. From there, reports indicate a letter was drafted, described as long, legal-heavy, and rooted in constitutional language. People familiar with the alleged wording say the central message was simple. Senators cannot support steps that, in their view, weaken the Senate's role or expand executive power too far. Then came the key moment. Trump was reportedly alerted. Accounts from people close to the situation say his reaction was immediate and intense, with strong language aimed at senators he believed were turning against him. After that, he reportedly began calling allies directly, trying to lock down loyalty and pressure wavering voices back into line. Some senators, according to sources, stood firm. Others stayed silent. And that silence became news by itself. Because when House Republicans appear fully aligned, but Senate Republicans hesitate, reporters notice, voters notice, donors notice. And then, according to reports, the letter or details of it reached major political media outlets. Not just vague hints, not just anonymous quotes, but a fuller picture that suggested Senate leadership was preparing to resist. At that point, Washington's assumption changed. This was no longer a private disagreement. It was beginning to look like a public split, and then another detail surfaced that made the situation feel even more serious. A Republican strategist familiar with internal planning reportedly told colleagues that leadership has considered a multi-step response if Trump escalates. Stage one, if Trump attacks publicly, senators respond together with coordinated messaging, respecting the presidency but emphasizing duty to the Constitution. Stage two, if primary challenges launch, leadership commits major money to protect incumbents and sends a signal to donors. The conference stands together. Stage 3, the step they reportedly hope to avoid, advancing a formal measure to limit emergency powers, possibly requiring bipartisan cooperation. Now, again, these are reports, internal discussions described by sources, not confirmed final actions. But the fact these options are being discussed at all shows how tense things may be behind the scenes. And while Republicans were dealing with this internal storm, Democrats were reportedly making their own choice. Sources familiar with Democratic strategy discussions suggest leadership debated whether to attack loudly or stay quiet and let Republicans own the split. Political analysts believe loud attacks could backfire by giving Republicans a common enemy. So reports suggest Democrats chose the quieter route, letting the story remain Trump versus members of his own party. And if that's true, it's a smart move, because when there's no outside opponent to blame, internal cracks become harder to hide. As the day went on, Trump's online messaging reportedly intensified, with repeated posts attacking certain senators and demanding primary challenges. And soon after, at least one primary challenge announcement reportedly surfaced in a key state, signaling that Trump is prepared to make this personal. Meanwhile, conservative media reactions, according to observers, have not been fully united. Some voices defending Trump strongly, others raising concerns about the direction of the conflict. That matters because the media environment often helps determine whether a party stays unified or fractures. Then donors began to weigh in. Reports suggest some business and donor groups signaled support for stability and predictable governance, language that many interpret as backing institutions over individual political battles. Behind the scenes, sources claim the Senate count became the main scoreboard. How many Republicans are willing to back leadership's line? Because if enough senators stand together and if Democrats vote as expected, then any emergency powers push is effectively blocked. And another development reportedly deepened the pressure. Early Thursday, internal polling numbers were said to have leaked, showing a notable difference between generic Republican strength and Republican strength tied closely to Trump's direct involvement. If accurate, that kind of swing is massive, because it can mean the difference between holding the Senate and losing it. Then came another reported shock: staff-level unrest. Some accounts suggest dozens of Senate staffers circulated a message saying they did not want to defend messaging they considered indefensible. If staff support collapses, the daily machine of politics breaks down. No statements, no rapid response, no press handling. That kind of internal resistance is rare. Then international reactions reportedly arrived. Diplomatic statements from allied governments expressed concern about rhetoric related to allied territory and security commitments. And when allies speak publicly like that, it becomes harder for senators to treat this as normal political theater. So now the pressure isn't just from voters. It's from staff, from donors, from media, from allies. It's coming from all directions. And when leaders feel surrounded, they usually do one of two things: retreat or escalate. Reports suggest Trump is choosing escalation. An emergency rally was reportedly announced in a key state tied to one of the senators viewed as breaking ranks. And Trump is said to be meeting with loyal House allies to plan a maximum pressure campaign on Senate Republicans. Then came one of the most sensitive moments. According to reports, Trump encouraged protests outside certain Senate offices. Security assessments reportedly increased, and Capitol-related law enforcement took the situation seriously. In response, Senate leadership reportedly issued a calm statement through a spokesperson emphasizing that intimidation would not change constitutional responsibilities and that the Senate serves the American people, not any one individual. But one of the most important moves, according to sources, happened quietly. Leadership reportedly reached out to a small group of Democrats viewed as institutional moderates, asking a simple question: if the Senate moves to limit emergency powers, will you support it? Sources indicate the answer was yes. And if that's true, then the math changes completely, because it means Senate leadership may already have enough votes to block an expansion and even to take action limiting future attempts. Trump may not know every detail yet. The public may not know the full count yet, but insiders believe the center of gravity has shifted. Now zoom out, because this is bigger than one bill or one argument. This is about how political control works and how it breaks. First, fear loses its power when people stop believing it will protect them. Second, group action changes everything. It's easy to isolate one senator. It's harder to isolate 17. Third, institutions only fail when the people inside them decide not to use their authority. And according to analysts, that may be what's changing right now. So what happens next? Most observers see three possible paths. Path 1, Trump pulls back. He softens the demand, shifts the message, and declares victory anyway. Some analysts think that's possible, but not likely. Path 2, a tense standoff. Trump keeps attacking, but stops short of a total war. Senate Republicans hold their line, but avoid pushing the fight to the breaking point. Many believe this is the most likely short-term outcome. Path 3, full rupture. Trump launches major primary battles, the Senate responds with formal limits on executive power, and the party splits openly with real electoral damage. The key question is whether this conflict cools down or whether it keeps growing quietly until something snaps. And here's the part you should not ignore. History suggests when political leaders feel boxed in, they often strike harder, not softer. Trump has faced pressure from Democrats for years, but a serious challenge from within his own party, that's different. So now the question becomes, what happens when the target isn't the opposition, but Republicans themselves? Can the party survive an internal war? And can the political system handle what comes next if this standoff becomes a permanent break? Because over the next 48 to 72 hours, we may learn whether this is just another moment of tension or the start of a new era inside the Republican Party. And the biggest question of all is this: if Senate Republicans are truly drawing a line now, what will Trump do when he reaches that line and realizes it won't move?